Hey guys, it is tea time and today I am going to talk about life in the Netherlands, what it's like to grow up in the Netherlands, live in the Netherlands, Dutch life in general. So I have been requested to do this video pretty much ever since I started my channel. You guys seem to be really interested in what it's like to live in the Netherlands, but I have been putting it off because it's kind of hard for me to tell the major differences between living in the Netherlands and living in other countries, and especially the minor differences. First of all, I've only ever lived here, so I don't really have anything else to compare it to. And secondly, I guess it also kind of depends on where you guys are from, what is normal to you guys. So I thought it would be best if I just do this video as a kind of Q&A so that you guys can ask me specific questions. I'm going to be talking about a country as a whole, which is very hard, if not impossible to do. So anything I say will be based on my personal experience or my personal opinion through living here, or a generalization. There's not really any way to avoid that, so keep that in mind. So I guess I should start this video off by saying that I was born in Slovakia, but I moved here when I was 2. That's why I don't look Dutch, maybe. For all intents and purposes, I am just Dutch. I have Dutch nationality. I was raised with Dutch culture. So I can't really talk about what it's like to move here or to live here as a foreigner because I don't really have experience with that since I was 2 when that went down. And at that age, obviously, I learned the language very quickly. I enrolled in a preschool like just a few months later, and I have just been a Dutch kid ever since. That being said, let's move on to the questions that you guys have for me. Surprisingly enough, I have gotten a lot of questions about the Dutch healthcare system. I wasn't expecting that, but apparently it is interesting. What's the healthcare system like? Do you have universal healthcare? Is your healthcare system stressful or easy to navigate? So yes, we have universal healthcare. We have compulsory insurance, which means that you are required by law to have private health insurance. There is a whole system behind it, which is apparently quite unique and pretty complicated. Basically, health insurance companies are required to offer a certain set of covered healthcare, and then they are allowed to kind of expand upon that and offer more services, and that is kind of how they compete with each other. People with low incomes receive government support to pay for their health insurance, and that support comes from taxes, so everybody pays towards a kind of pool of money that has to do with health insurance. That's about as much as I know, and I believe that's pretty much how it works over here. In general, I feel like it works pretty well. I'm quite happy with it myself. And then many people also asked about education in the Netherlands and the kind of education system and what that looks like. I do believe that's quite different from other countries, so let me break it down. Basically, in the Netherlands, you go to school starting age 4, and ages 4 to 6 is a kind of preschool almost, I'd say. It's the first 2 years of a normal primary elementary school, but during those first 2 years you kind of just learn to, you know, deal with being in a school environment, having a teacher and having classmates, things like that. You also work on developing some fine motor skills, and you start to learn basic things like the alphabet and numbers and things like that. Then from ages 6 to 12, sorry, one of the rats is drinking over there, but ages 6 to 12, primary or elementary school. Then at age 12, you do a test which determines which kind of high school you will go to. So there are a few options in the Netherlands, and I believe there are like 3 main levels of education or high school education, and which one you're sent to depends on your test results and also the advice from your primary school teacher. And these 3 levels determine where you will go on to study after high school. So the first one is pretty much where you will learn a trade. That's kind of the easiest way to put it, I guess. Then there is a middle level or middle tier, which is geared towards sending people off to college. So it's a little bit more theoretic, and then the last level is meant for people who will go to university after, and that is very science oriented. And that level of education is split in 2 again, with on the one hand you have your kind of normal pre-university education, and then on the other side there is classical education. And those kids also learn Greek and Latin and some things about classical culture. I followed the pre-university education myself, so I don't have any experience with the other 2 levels, but what I do know is that pre-university and the pre-college levels in the 3rd year, so at age 14, 15, I think, you choose kind of like a direction or a general field of science that you want to progress in. So I believe there is one category which is more like theoretical science, like physics and chemistry and things like that, mathematics. Then there is one that is more geared towards healthcare, so you also have physics, but then biology and things like that. There is one that is for economy and management and things like that. And then the last one is more geared towards languages and arts and things like that. So guess which one I did. So someone else asked, is university college free or affordable? Back in my time when I started university, we had a scholarship for everyone, which was turned into a grant once you graduated. A few years after I started studying, that was turned into a loan. So everyone still gets kind of money to go to university or college, but you have to pay it back afterwards. It's not free, but it's not super expensive either. I believe the average tuition around 2,000 euros a year. Someone asks, is it true that the rent is really high? Well, that greatly depends on where you're looking. In Amsterdam and the big cities in general, yes, housing prices are absolutely insane at the moment. But once you move more towards the country, more towards the east and the south and the north, it is much better and much more doable. This just heavily depends on where you want to live. What is the best food from the Netherlands? I would say probably kruidnoten, pepernoten are my favorite. They are little tiny cookies that taste basically like pumpkin spice. It's very comparable, and they are eaten around the holiday of St. Nicholas, Sinterklaas. How is the weather there, especially in summer? The Netherlands have a very moderate climate, which means temperatures don't vary much. It doesn't get super hot and it doesn't get super cold over here. I think it generally ranges between like -5 to +30 degrees. That's about the range that it'll go to. Of course, sometimes it'll get more or less, but that's pretty much what the temperatures like over here. In summer, I'd say anywhere from 15 to 25 degrees is a normal temperature. What form of currency do you use? The Netherlands uses the euro. My boyfriend lives in Eindhoven, so I visit from Sweden every month, but I can't find any nice Dutch nature. Yeah, I feel you. The Netherlands are just that, Netherlands. They are low, they are flat, there isn't really much nature over here, and the little pieces of nature that we do have, we have some really nice pockets of nature. I personally really love the Utrechtse Heuvelrug, and the Hoge Veluwe are quite lovely, but even like the best of Dutch nature doesn't compare to nature in other parts of the world. It's just not really here. All the people I know from the Netherlands, young and old, drink on the daily. Is that normal? I don't know that it is normal, but I can't say that it is definitely not. I think this very much depends on your environment. In my social circle, that is not something that is done, but I do know that people like to have a beer after work. I was surprised to read it, but I can't really say it's not normal either. I guess we definitely don't have as much of a drinking culture as the UK and Ireland, for example, but it's not like it's unusual to have a beer after work. Do you eat chocolate on bread? And what is your favorite Dutch candy? Yes, I definitely eat chocolate on bread. We all do. I love the chocolate spread. I love the chocolate sprinkles. It's delicious. You should try it. And my favorite Dutch candy, I'm not a big candy person, but I really like honingdrop, which is licorice with honey. That's quite good. Oh, I got a lot of questions about how cheap or expensive it is to live in the Netherlands. I can't really answer that because it very much depends on what cheap means to you and what you are comparing it to. The Netherlands are a first world country. So I wouldn't say it's cheap, especially compared to like the rest of the world, I guess. But it's not as expensive as, for example, Scandinavia, which I know is even pricier than living over here. Someone asks, have I always lived in Amsterdam? No, I actually grew up in Amstelveen, which is a town right next to Amsterdam. How many scouts are there and how long have you been a scout? I have been a scout since I was a little kid. I believe I joined when I was 6 years old. I stopped going when I was 11 and then I rejoined again a few years ago. See how many are there? That's something I have to look up. There are apparently around 90,000 children who have joined scouting, 25,000 leaders and 3,600 adult scouts who aren't also a leader. That's quite a lot, actually. We don't have that big of a population. How is ecology and environment perceived in your country? I don't think I can give a general answer to that. That varies greatly from person to person. I do feel like that is something that mostly young people care about and the political left. Would you say that Dutch people don't like foreigners? No, definitely not. I feel like the Dutch are very open with things like that. I'm from Germany and I kind of expect it to be similar to how we grew up, minus the bikes. Yeah, I think that's about right. I have visited Germany a few times and I think it's pretty similar to the Netherlands. I think bikes are the primary means of transportation in the Netherlands. Everyone owns a bike. People ride their bikes. It's just a thing we do. We have special roads for bikes. We have special traffic lights for bikes, we have special traffic rules for bikes. It's a very bike-oriented country. Someone asked about the minimum wage in the Netherlands. I looked that up and it was, I believe, around 19,600 euros per year. I believe that's about the minimum wage in the Netherlands. Oh, I had a little conversation with a girl from India actually about, again, the school system in the Netherlands. That kind of opened my eyes to a few more things I think I can say about school over here. We don't wear uniforms. Dutch schools in general don't have any rules when it comes to clothing whatsoever. In elementary school, you have one class with one teacher, and then in high school, every teacher has his own classroom and the class kind of moves from classroom to classroom. I believe that's the same in America as well. Is there something like Dutch fashion, like Scandinavian style, for example? I honestly don't think there is. Again, when I compare it to the rest of the world, the Dutch put very little effort into fashion and things like that. I mean, they are well groomed and they always look presentable, but they don't take the extra step to, you know, curl hair, put on a lot of makeup, or wear something that is very fashionable. In general, that is. I don't think you can really say there is a typical Dutch look. What are annoying things tourists do? Doing drugs on the street, that is my number one thing that bothers me incredibly. Also being drunk out on the street, just misbehaving in general, being very loud. That is something that tourists do. Yeah, I think those are the biggest ones. Oh, and trying to cycle in central Amsterdam, that is just a bad idea. I have a whole video actually with tips for tourists who are coming to Amsterdam. So if you want to see that, I will link it up in the info card. And she also asks, how do you spot Dutch tourists in other countries? They're actually really easy to spot. Firstly, because they will usually pack their own food and bring their own lunches, and they will eat just slices of bread. Which I don't think I've seen anywhere else. That's something that Dutch people do. And also they are just very tall and usually very blonde. So that's how you spot a Dutch tourist in another country. Oh, and they are everywhere. The Dutch are very big travelers, so no matter where you go. I have come across Dutch people in the little villages in Slovakia where my family sometimes goes in the summer. They're everywhere. Are the people friendly? Yes, I do think so. Do you think you will retire there because weather is very bad? Although I agree with you, it is all I know, really. I'm used to it, and yes, I have every intention of staying here for the rest of my life. What age were you when you began biking places? I was pretty old actually because I lived very far away from my elementary school, but it's pretty normal, I think, to do it at around like age 10 maybe, where parents just send kids off to school by bike. But again, that very much depends on how close you are to the school, how safe the way there is. Sometimes with kids around this age or younger or a little bit older, the parents will cycle to school with the children. I'd say people generally learn to cycle around age 3 to 4 around here. Would you say it's easy to be vegan in the Netherlands? Compared to many other places I've been to, yes, definitely. Again, it depends on where you are and the location. In the big cities, it is definitely not a problem at all, especially if you have a bigger supermarket near you. Yeah, we have loads and loads and loads of different vegan products and like mock meats and things like that. And it is becoming more and more normal for restaurants to offer vegan options as well. So yeah, I think we have it pretty good in that regard. Any good vintage and secondhand shops in the Netherlands? Yeah, we definitely do have some great ones. Secondhand shopping is something that exists over here. I know in some countries it's just not a thing. It is over here. You have like your normal kind of thrift shops, and you also have your like more fancy vintage shops. I actually have a list on my blog with the best vintage shops in Amsterdam, so I will link to that as well in an info card if you're interested in that. What is the weather like? I know it's a silly question, but it's not so great where I live. Very grey and rainy for the most part. That is kind of the standard over here. And again, the temperatures are pretty constant. Why do people think that Dutch people are rude? Is it because they are outspoken and straight? Dutch people are very practical and they just communicate in a way that is apparently pretty different from the way it's done in other places. The Dutch just don't like to beat around the bush, and when they're talking, they just, you know, say what they want to say, which I personally really enjoy. It's a very effective way of communicating. I don't personally perceive it as rude at all, but that's because, you know, again, it's kind of what I know. If this kind of social norm in your country is to fluff it up, like everything you say, then I can understand why a Dutch person would be very direct and maybe rude even. But I'd say honestly, most people don't mean it like that. They aren't trying to be rude. That is just how they talk. What is a typical Dutch meal? Dutch traditional food is practical. I think that is kind of a key word in Dutch culture. Everything is practical. The typical Dutch meal consists of potatoes, some kind of meat, and some kind of vegetable. One vegetable, no spices. Sometimes they will add jus, which is like pretty much the liquid that comes off when you cook meat. They will put that over the potatoes, and that is it. That is it. Sometimes they will take the potatoes and the meat and the vegetables and mash them together, and that's a different dish. Foreign cuisine is very, very common in Dutch culture. Most people will very often eat Italian food. Indonesian food is pretty popular over here, food from all over the world, but Dutch traditional food is pretty simple and bland. Although I really enjoy a good stamppot or AVG'tje from time to time. How are the public libraries? Do you go often? Public libraries are pretty good. We have quite many of them. I believe every town has at least one library. I used to go a lot as a kid, and as a teenager I haven't been in years now. At what age do you guys start learning English? As far as I'm aware, and it was like this when I was in school in any case, you start learning English at age 12 when you enter high school. Oh, next question is, why is everyone so fluent in English? Do you all speak English in the everyday? No, English is not an official language in the Netherlands. It is very prevalent over here. Not that we speak it to each other, but it is everywhere in the media. We don't dub our movies, so everything on TV that is from America, for example, and from England is all in English, and that is a lot of what's on TV. Most movies, of course, are from Hollywood, so they're all in English. We have subtitles under everything, so most Dutch people are exposed to English from a very young age. The Dutch are also very, very active on the internet, and most of the internet is of course in English as well. This is a pretty recent development, but many universities also teach in English for the most part. There is a lot of English everywhere, but it's not like we speak it. Are people in your country private? Americans rarely respect others' privacy. Fun fact. A lot of Dutch people don't actually have curtains. This is one of the few things that is actually really strange to me as a non-native Dutch person. The lack of curtains. I do not understand how people can be okay with just being out there. But yeah, that is something that you will notice if you come to the Netherlands. Just look around you and you will see how many houses just don't have curtains. They don't care. I don't understand, but yeah. You will have low fences in front of houses and behind houses. Again, the no curtains thing. In general, I think that is not something that the Dutch are extremely bothered about. I would like to know which is the festivity that represents the Netherlands the most. I would say either Sinterklaas or Koningsdag. So either the Festival of St. Nicholas or King's Day. St. Nicholas is a children's holiday where Sinterklaas, St. Nick, comes along and brings toys and presents, and kids put their shoes out for him to put presents in, and there are like certain foods associated with it, and it's just a very nostalgic thing for many people. And then King's Day is the celebration of our king's birthday, and that is celebrated by selling your old stuff on the street. It's a very odd way to celebrate, but that is what we do. You are allowed to go out on the street and sell your stuff, which is normally not allowed. The other option is go to a festival and get very drunk. That's pretty much what we do. Oh, and we wear orange, because, you know, our royal family is the House of Orange. Are millennials living with their parents due to debt and economy issues like Americans do? Not necessarily because of debt and economy issues. The economy is doing quite alright in the Netherlands, and it's not very common to be in debt over here, but people do live with their parents for longer, and I think that mostly has to do with the housing prices at the moment. Most young people tend to move to a big city, and yeah, prices are pretty insane over there. So it is happening more and more, but that's the reason. I heard that you guys don't have credit cards over there. Is that true? Partially maybe, I'd say. We do have credit cards. It's an option, you can get them, but we don't use them. Or at least we rarely use them in the country. Pretty much everyone I know who owns a credit card, which isn't everyone by far, only uses it for travel. So to book hotels and like rental cars and things like that. We use debit cards as our primary means of payment. Yeah, most stores don't even accept credit cards at all. I have never owned one. I think among my peers, I know like 2 people who have a credit card maybe. So yeah, that does say something. What do you think of Wilhelm and Maxima? Are they more yellow press or are there many royalists? Willem Alexander and Maxima are our current king and queen, and I do believe that they are quite loved in the country. The majority of the Dutch population are royalists. I believe like 55% of people want to keep the royal family, and most of the people that have a problem with them have a problem with the fact that their function is ceremonial and they cost a lot of money according to those people. I do believe that in general people really like them as people. I personally love the royal family. I am so glad that we have one. I am very big into tradition and things like that. I just really like the idea of having a king and a royal family and things like that, and I also really like the king and queen and their daughters as people. So yeah. What is the most popular religion in the Netherlands? Atheism. Oh, it's not a religion, but I looked up the statistics on this and I believe that, again, I think 55% actually of people are not part of any religion, and out of the people that are religious, most of them are elderly and most of them are Catholic. But I also read that amongst people between ages 15 and 25, only 1 in 3 people is religious, so that number's gonna drop. What amount of authority do parents have on their children in your culture? The Netherlands are definitely one of the countries where parents are very lenient with their children. Children are raised in very much a free way with a lot of freedom. They are allowed to voice their opinion a lot, and parents aren't very authoritative. So someone asks about the crime rate. Do you feel safe? Crime rates are pretty good over here. I am someone who suffers from anxiety, so how safe I feel isn't always a reflection of reality, but even I would say that I definitely do feel safe in the Netherlands, especially when I compare it to other countries I visited. As someone who is more shy, does being in a big city scare or stress you in any way? No, actually, I prefer being in a big city because, strangely enough, the more people there are around you, the more you are able to be anonymous within that group of people. I feel like in a small village, you are much more obliged to have small talk with neighbors and people on the streets, whereas in a big city, everyone just kind of ignores each other, which I do actually like. I know many people don't like that. For me, it's quite comfortable. Do you feel the need to travel out of the country? Have you ever thought about moving out? I am not a big traveler. I've talked about this before on my channel. I don't really enjoy traveling that much. The only reason why I do really travel is to seek out nicer nature. Yeah, to be in the mountains and forests and things like that. That is definitely not enough reason for me to move out. I think the Netherlands are a great country when it comes to social things and political things and just life here in general. I'm very satisfied with. Yeah, I definitely don't want to move to another country. Do you ever wish there were hills and glens? Oh, do I wish there were hills and glens? If there were hills and glens, I would never ever leave this country at all. That is definitely the biggest thing I miss over here in the Netherlands. Luckily, the hills and actual glens are just a very short plane ride away. Is it rare to be obese? I'm gonna have to look up some numbers again for that. Let's see, 15% of Dutch people over 18 years of age are obese. So being obese isn't super common, but then again, 50% of people are overweight. So that's a little bit more common. But yeah, obesity only 15%. What is your favorite place to visit when you have time, like a park or a town? Well, Utrecht, of course. I absolutely love Utrecht. I lived there for 4 years when I was in university and just a little bit after that, and I absolutely fell in love with the city. I miss it a lot and I go back there pretty much whenever I get the chance, so I do spend quite a lot of time in Utrecht. But also the Efteling is my favorite place on earth. It is a fairy tale themed theme park. I actually have a vlog from when I went there to celebrate my birthday 2 years ago. 1 year ago. I'm not that old yet. So you can see kind of the full Efteling experience. I'm really proud of that vlog. I will put it up in the info card as well. Alright guys, I think I have about an hour of footage at this point, so I'm gonna stop filming here. Thank you so much for sending in your questions. I hope you got the answers that you wanted. Please feel free to leave comments in the comments. Wow. Please feel free to leave any further additional questions that you may have in the comments below, and I will try to answer as best as I can. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel for loads more beauty and lifestyle content. If you would like to support me through Patreon or my merch store, where I have these lovely tea time mugs, for example, there will be links in the description box below. Thank you so much for your support. There's another video here that I think you might also enjoy. You can go watch next. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you very soon in my next video. Bye!